Hey, what's up, everyone? It's Luke here from Astro Awakening with my cool new hat, my wise ass hat. My beautiful sister-in-law bought me that for my birthday recently. How fucking sick is it? It's got the owl. Love the owl. Um, yeah, sick. Rocking the beards, coming along nicely. This is a little project that I set um, just for a period of time in my life to sort of grow a beard during this bit of a transition that I was making. And then I made it through that transitional period. And my girlfriend's like, I want you to keep the beard. And I'm like, all right. So the keys to my beard now are firmly in the grips of her. So I'm just letting it go. This is the longest I've ever had a beard. And for those men out there that grow beards, you always get to that point when you're growing a beard that you get to this threshold of like, oh, it's irritating me and it's going in your nose, it goes everywhere. And I've never made it through that, before this moment. But this time I pushed through that threshold, and yeah, now I'm starting to sort of get a little bit attached to the old face fluff. Goes with the old bald head. Anyway, this is my energy update for Mercury retrograde period. Little bit of an esoteric breakdown of the energy and what's going on and how to navigate this in your own personal life, because it's going to be a fucking intense couple of months. Well, I looked at the astrology for this year, and at the beginning of this year, I was looking around the October-November period as like, oh, there's a lot of shit heating up, especially in November when we get into Scorpio season. So there'll be more on that coming. But for now, we've got our third and final Mercury retrograde of this year, 2021. This is going to be a tense one. Mercury is in the sign of the scales, Libra. So it's about harmony, peace, justice, fairness, and how do we seek those things? And what will come up for a lot of people is in their own personal life. If we look at the micro and the macro, so personal life, the theme's going to be around balancing your relationships, all your primary relationships, especially those ones where there's intimacy or emotions involved, because the depositor for this Mercury retrograde being Venus. Venus is actually currently in debilitation in Scorpio. So, there's a lot of intense feelings that are going to come up as you go into this sort of Mercury reflection, revision, redoing, rethinking. And it's in this sign of scales, harmony, peace, and balance. So, the biggest challenge is how do we find that peace, that sort of harmony that we're looking for? If we're reliant on what's going on outside of ourselves for like, well, I just can't wait for the world to be better, and can't we just all love one another, and can't we just find peace and get along? I think this Mercury retrograde is really going to challenge that, because I think there's going to be a lot of shifts in the narrative. There's going to be a lot of testing of people's will. There's going to be a lot of probably stuff that comes up that's being repressed or hidden or concealed or secretive that we're made aware of. And it's got the flavor of like really upsetting the harmony. So yeah, it's, coming back to that question of like, how do you find peace and balance in this type of chaotic world? And the answer always lies within, right? It's always cultivating with the mind, Mercury, right? That rules over our mind, our thinking, our rationale, our reasoning, and our logic. How do we seek balance? Well, we've got to cultivate a balanced mind from within. So we have to, if we look at scales and they can tip one way or tip the other. So we've got to look at our own life at the moment as what's tipping our scales. What is it? It's what's going on in the outer world. What happens sometimes, especially if you're in an insecure or a, really volatile or emotional state, you can be sort of skewed already and tilted off balance. And when you're off balance and then you're looking out into the world, you're going to tend to attract into your consciousness those things that resonate with this out of balance. So they could be things like, police brutality. And that's been a really big theme over the last little while, especially in Melbourne, where the cops have just gone really heavy-handed. And also, not to say that they weren't already, but just the instances have increased. And there seems to be a lot more of that being spread around social media. So, where attention goes, energy flows. So if you're giving attention or conscious awareness to those things, you're going to amplify those things. And if those things are on this side of the balance, the scales, they're going to tip you more and more out of balance. So just be mindful if you're looking at those things and you're feeling and you're getting emotionally involved and you're feeling out of balance, then you have the responsibility to really consider whether it's worth your energy to give it to those things. It's not to say and to deny it happening. It's not to say that you condone it. It's just to choose whether you personally should be spending money, money, literally, form of energy, spending energy, giving that your attention. And if it's creating unbalance, right, then you're going to be unbalanced. Then you'll find on the other end of the scale is you'll find that your personal life is where you're trying to tip that back, right? You're going to try and tip that back, and you might have this reliance on other people around you to support you or pick you up when you're down or make you feel good and better. And it's like, hang on, what about if you just stepped off that side of the scale? Like, what if you just stepped off that little bit? And, the opposite is also true. If you've come too reliant and too dependent on those closest to you in your personal relationships for your peace, that's putting the pressure on those and on those particular relationships. So it's like, do I need to step off that side a little bit? And ultimately, who is responsible for cultivating harmony and peace? This is the test for for those of us that are doing on the spiritual evolution path. This is a test for us. It's like as we go through this sort of process of transformation, this intensity, this chaos, this just what the hell's going on in the world, it's a real test to sort of say, well, can you stand in the light? Can you be the peace? Can you be the harmony in your life? Can you, even in the storm, can you cultivate that sense of inner peace? So really massive test in people. Going to be lots of stuff coming up around things that have not been that have been brushed to the side or pushed under, especially in your personal relationships, things that haven't been said. If you've been harboring bad energy or thoughts or, emotional sort of shit towards another person close to you, family members, lover, brother, sister, whoever, close friendships, if you've been harboring like, that's going to come up most likely in this retrograde. Why? Because you can't deny it. You can't hide from it. You've got to resolve it. You've got to learn how to resolve it. You don't resolve it by going, just forget about it. Or you push it down and, and you can go and interact with these people on the surface level of reality. And it's all transactional. It's all like, hey, should yeah, good. And then you go home and go, fucking bitch, right? You can't continue to do that because it's upsetting your balance, your peace and your harmony. So it has to come to a resolution. And I think that there'll be a lot of this type of energy going on during this retrograde. Now, whilst you have Mercury retrograding in Libra, the sign of balance and harmony, you've also got Mars and the Sun have moved both into Libra now. And they're going to go, Mars is actually under the beams of the Sun at the moment. So Mars in general is sort of weakening, right? And Mars and the Sun are both planets that revolve around our will. And when they're in Libra, we don't do too well, right? We don't have a very strong will because the Sun likes to be in Aries where it's exalted. So it's debilitated in Libra, okay? Because it's got to think of others. It can't be putting itself first. It's got to think of its, how it impact that it has on other people. Mars as well. Mars is the planet of like, let's do this, right? Decisiveness and impulse and courage and assertiveness. Yet in Libra, it's like, oh, hang on a second, my actions impact other people. What's the impact of my actions? And it's constantly putting the other person first. So both those planets revolve around the willpower. What will we have to exercise? With those in Libra, whilst we've got this retrograde, your will is being tested, right? So and what's the best way, the use of will? Well, when you combine love and will, right? The love and the will. I think I heard Kai Pacha, who does the Pele report, he did his last update recently, And he was talking about the dove and the eagle, and the dove representing the love and the eagle representing the will. And it's the fusing together of these two things. So that'll be a real theme as well. But when Mars is in the situation that it's in at the moment, and Mars is the planet of aggression, right? It's the god of war. It's like, if you're going to do anything, if you're going to take action, if you're going to be decisive and assertive, you're going to do it with your Mars energy. So when Mars is under the beams of the sun like this, you tend to get a lot of the reactiveness of Mars. You get a lot more of its aggression. It's a bit snappy. It's really sort of, fiery, but not as consistent. So it might be just all of a sudden things come up within your relationships, and all of a sudden you're overreacting. So be very mindful of that. Another big sort of shift in energy, and there's so much shifting. So when Mercury's retrograde today, 27th of September here in Australia, you're going to have Mercury, we're going to have Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. Okay, that's 7 planets, all retrograde. Right up until the 6th of October. And on the 6th of October, we have Pluto turning direct. But this retrograde is happening today with Mercury at 25 degrees of Libra, and Pluto is at 24 degrees of Capricorn. So there's this 90-degree square aspect between these two energies. So the theme for this Mercury retrograde is going to have this infused Pluto transformation, death and rebirth theme. A lot of things coming up. What was hidden is now brought into consciousness. Pluto deals in the deep unconscious, and there's can be a lot of things that have been hidden, concealed, ways in which we've been manipulated, or we're manipulating others, issues around power, really emotionally intense situations. And Mercury rules over the intellect, the conscious mind, the thinking mind, the rational mind. So when these two planets combine, you can have a lot of that mud, that yucky shadow, come right up through. Now, because of the square, it's not going to come up through with an easy sort of solution. It's going to come up and really test the mind, really test the ability to have a sound, balanced mind, and to discern, to have rationale, to be, having that right balance between yourself and other people. We have currently Mercury retrograde squaring Pluto on the 6th, I believe it is. Yeah, we have on the 6th, we have a new moon. You're going to have Mars, the sun, and the moon all at around 13-14 degrees of Libra. That's on the 6th. And then on the 7th, we're going to have Pluto go direct. I think later that month, Saturn will go direct, and Jupiter will go direct. So we're going to plan when all this energy is going from retrograde to direct. And at the end of this month, on the 19th of October, Mercury will turn direct as well. So there's a huge amount of shifting energy in October. So when you have that, you can expect things to change. The story will change, the narrative will change. There may be a loss of control of the story or the way you thought things were going to happen. It's useful during this sort of shift of energy to sort of not necessarily hang too tightly to an outcome or the way things are going to be. Just be like, oh, okay, I'm prepared for anything. I'm going to cultivate my inner state of peace and harmony, but I'm prepared for any sort of shift in things. I'll talk more on the new moon as we get closer to that, and break down what that's going to mean for the month ahead once we get into that. But we're currently still in the waning phase of the last lunar cycle. We've already had some huge shifts, and that new moon back a few weeks ago was trining Uranus, a planet of change. It's the liberator. It'll tend to liberate, where there's stalemates and challenges in energy, where they've been out of balance, or they've been stagnated or, stuck. Uranus will tend to come along and shift that. So we've certainly seen that, with the the way that the narrative is being going, the push now, and how it's spreading out into industry. I think around the 3rd and 4th of October here in Australia, you've got, a lot of different industries. I think there's police, the medical industry, health industry. I don't know, I think it could be even teachers as well. I think they've got their first deadline to have had their first jab, or face, the risk of unemployment. So if you throw that, what's happening in the outer world, into this mix of this change and shift, it's going to be a pretty wild ride. It's definitely going to be a wild Mercury retrograde. At the end of the day, there is no good or bad astrology. There is challenging energetic shifts that happen. But ultimately, if we have the belief that we are a soul incarnated into human form to evolve the soul's unique expression, our own personal experience of consciousness, and the collective consciousness at large, we're going through a massive shift in consciousness. So yes, it's not all roses and it's wonderful and it's easy. It's challenging, right? And the desire and the need and the will, right? And the will's definitely going to be tested this month. It's the will to do what? It's the will to live. It's the will to survive, right? And it's what are you willing, to compromise on? What values do you hold that you're saying no? It doesn't matter what they do or don't do, what they restrict, take away, that I'm not going to bend on this. I'm not going to give in to this. It's interesting that they've chosen this deadline around early October for, for a lot of industries to have had their first jab, because we have the 2 planets of will, the Sun and Mars, both in a place of challenge at the moment in Libra. So, a lot of people's will is definitely challenged, and there's no coincidences. Whoever is behind this regime and this whatever you want to call it, agenda, are definitely utilizing astrological sort of shifts and times and things to implement a lot of their methods, if you like. So it's hard at the moment, because you may be thinking very short term. What am I going to do for work? What am I going to do to pay my bills? What am I going to do to put food on my table? And whilst they're very reasonable reasons to be challenged, if we can think, what is being challenged at the moment is your will to survive, to live, right? The thriving will come, right? But the process of transformation has to take place. And short term, there can be a lot of fear or hesitation, because you're looking very short term and what am I going to do next week? What am I going to do for work? Right? And it's useful at the moment to sort of think, long term, where do I want to be in 5 years? What do I want to do? Do I want to compromise my health potentially by taking, experimental gene therapy? And what's that going to do to me in 5 years from now? What am I going to be like in 10 years? What sort of father, grandfather, what sort of, lover do I want to be as I move from whatever age bracket into the next sort of growth period in my life? And if you can hold that that long-term sort of goal or objective, or no matter what, this is what I'm doing, this is where I'm here, and this is where I'm going, it helps to transition through these moments of change and chaos. But I think it's useful as well at the moment to sort of hang on to a couple of different possibilities and scenarios and perspectives. You do have a lot of people that are wanting to just make it stop. Let's go back to normal, or why, how can they do this? And at the moment, it's sort of useful. It's useless energy to give to those types of situation, because it puts you in a place of victim or helplessness. So, it is what it is. It is what it is. Is it right? Is it good? Is it evil? Is it fucked? Right. It's all those things. But, what does that change about it? It doesn't change anything. It just only amplifies your insecurity and your emotional vulnerability. And when you're in those states, you know, with the Mercury retrograde in Libra, your clarity, your discernment, your ability to judge what's right is definitely challenged. So I feel for those people, for you guys out there that are in situations personally where you're being pushed into a place of ultimatum. But know that, you know, this too shall pass. And you don't want to get to the 11th hour at 11:59 and succumb only to have a massive shift and then a little bit of guilt, shame, or resentment because you didn't hang in there. So at the moment, what I'd say is hang in there, hang in there. Do not compromise. Do not give in. Do not break your will. Do not let them break your will. Right? This is a test of your will to see just, you know, how strong-willed you are. And it's time, I guess, too, as a collective that we stand up, you know, personally and collectively. We stand up and we say, no, I'm not going to compromise, no matter what. You know, for me, I look at them saying, you can't do this, you're not going to be able to do that, you can't go to the restaurant, you can't go to the movies, you won't be able to go watch the football. And I'm like, it really does not affect my life whatsoever. Not like, oh no, I really want to go and, you know, watch the game of football. It doesn't affect my life. And to be honest, the more that they say you can't do those types of things, the less I'm inspired to even connect to that type of reality. I think for the vast majority of us that are in this position where we're like, oh, whatever, I think it's time that we look to the future, our future, and go, okay, what are we doing? What are we doing here? What do we want to cultivate? What sort of reality do we want to live in? We want to live in one of community, of connection, right? Of respect, irrelevant or irrespective of our differences, just respect, right, of each other. So, you know, maybe some work around like putting energy, putting thought, putting reflection. With a Mercury retrograde, it's always a good opportunity to spend time in reflection, you know, just having to think about things. We're in the third of the year, so like third Mercury retrograde. So think back this year and think to different times that you've been through and where we were challenged and what you were challenged on. And each time, it's actually probably a good time right now to think back to every moment in your life from earliest memory you have to now. And each time you've been challenged with something that you were afraid of, or there was something that was going to end, or there was the uncertainty or the fear that come with, like, you didn't know if you could get by or you could do it. And the truth of the matter is whatever challenge you faced, you're standing here now. You're watching this video, you're looking back at me. You made it through those, you know, and what character got built, what will got built during those times. You know, they say hard times make hard men. So, you know, draw on that as to know, and this is a useful sort of perspective to take, is to go, to get to the place where it doesn't matter what happens, what you get or what you don't get. It doesn't matter what happens, that you know you have within you the resources and the will to survive no matter what. And, you know, that's the place. You can give up everything. You can give up everything. You can lose it all and it doesn't matter, because you'll find a way. You'll find a way. And, you know, maybe in your life up until now, there have been moments where you've had to start from scratch, give it all up or start again, you know? And have you been able to do that? I've done it many times in my life. Each time what happens is a strengthening of my will and the resolve, and to know, okay, can do this. You know, so there's definitely a theme of being tested at the moment. So don't look to the outer world as if it's going to all of a sudden miraculously get better. I think there will be a lot of things come to light that were like, ooh, and a lot of shifts. But don't look to that or wait. And I get this a lot. I'm just going to wait and see. I'm just going to wait to see what happens with the jab. I'm just going to wait to see what happens with the border. I'm just going to wait to see what happens. Just going to wait, just going to wait, just going to wait. And what you're doing is you're putting off an inevitable, right? So get on the offensive, take the front foot now. Don't wait. If you're put in a position in your own personal work where you've been forced to sort of choose between the jab or the job, and you're like, nah, you know, you've had the inner talk, the self-talk, and you're like, yeah, you know what, fuck that, I'm not doing it. Don't sit around waiting now. Get on the offensive. Make these people that are enforcing this, whether they be a boss or, you know, head of your organization or the government or whoever, make them get on the defensive. Make them have to validate and prove their position. There's a lot of ways in which you can do that, right? You can ask them for a list of the ingredients. You can ask them for the results of its testing. You can ask them for the list of all the adverse effects. You can ask them for who's liable if something were to happen, right? Now, the end result may be the same. They might just draw the line and go, well, you know what, we don't care what you think or do. If you're not going to take it, you're not going to have a job. So be it. But don't just succumb. Don't just hand it over or walk out or say, oh, fuck, I quit anyway. Don't give them that, you know, don't give in that easily. Make them get on the back foot, make them work, make them realize how ridiculous this is. There's a lot of resources out there. If you want some resources that'll be put in the right area of groups online, Telegram groups, letters you can write, communities you can be a part of, then reach out. I don't know a lot, but I can put you in the right direction for a few of them. But get on the offensive, right? Take the lead in this situation. Don't wait. I always tell people, when you wait, what do? You put on weight. You stay stuck, stagnating. And ultimately, the thing that you're most afraid of, or the thing that you've got to do, the challenge just gets harder and harder because you're putting it off and you're giving it energy. So don't do that. Get on the offensive. Take the offensive. So in your own personal life, if you're looking for a bit of reassurance or some guidance, I'm offering a 10% discount on all of my services for the whole Mercury retrograde. And all you have to do is use the code FREEDOM. So I'll put this on my social media as well. Freedom as a capital F. So you go onto my website. That's www.astroawakening.com.au. Go to the booking section. And when you're booking, put in the code for discount code and just put capital F freedom. They'll give you 10% off any of my services. And the benefit of an astrology session at the moment, especially with a Mercury retrograde, is a time of pause. It's like your own personal pep talk, using your own personal astrology to do that. It's a fantastic thing to realign to that, to know. Reassurance is one thing at the moment that's lacking in the awakening movement. And people get lost because, you know, initially they're like, yep, but then they get pushed and pushed and pushed to a point and they lose that sort of, you know, support. And what better support to come from your own personal birth chart? So, you know, spruiking a bit of my own services, but this is what I do. I've been doing this, you know, from 2018, because when I went through my personal awakening, astrology was a tool, it was like something that just reassured me to keep reconnecting to who I am and why I'm here and what I'm doing. And it helped me understand so many different aspects of my journey that just made sense. And I couldn't look outside to those usual places of within my support of my relationship or my family or my friends. I isolated myself. I was doing a lot of this on my own. There was a lot of internal sort of work I was doing, and it's sort of a little bit isolating. So, you know, having my connection to my own chart was something that it was just a reassurance, like, okay, yeah, right, that makes sense. I'm on the right track. I know I'm aligning. So yeah, if you want that sort of personal sort of advice or reassurance or courage, or just the alignment that you're doing what's right for you, then definitely book in for a personal astrology reading. I will reach out again and do another video on the new moon as we get closer to that, and look closely at what's coming for the month ahead. We're still in the waning phase of the last moon cycle, so it's a lot of letting go and releasing. I would say to you, when outside is chaotic and your attention's been drawn to that, maybe it's time to just let go of it a little bit. If you can't be in a place at the moment where you're watching what's going on socially and through the mainstream media and through your friends and things like, if you can't be in a place of neutrality where you're just like, oh, okay, but you're continually getting enraged, or you're getting ungrounded or imbalanced, then seriously contemplate if that's what's best for you at this moment in time. Is that what's best for you? Is that going to give you the best opportunity to stay centered? Is that going to be the best for your close relationships, to be able to provide support to others? If you're just getting so frustrated and angry and pissed off, and with good reason, but if that's what it's doing to you, think very seriously of whether that's the right thing for you to do. Until then, reach out if you've got any questions. If you like this video, hit the thumbs up. That'd really be, awesome for me. Make sure you subscribe, comment in the section below, and I'll see you guys soon. Cheers.